Think your partner scrolling through your phone is invasive? Medieval castles. Suspicion alone could get your nose hacked off in the town square while your neighbors placed bets on how long you would scream. I'm talking about punishments so real, so deliberate, that they make Game of Thrones feel like a children's fairy tale. For centuries, the stone corridors of Europe's most powerful castles bore witness to terrors designed specifically to break women accused of betrayal. Punishments so calculated, so public, so permanently disfiguring that death itself would have been the kinder outcome. Today we're walking through castle halls most history books quietly avoid. The question isn't whether these punishments existed, it's how anyone survived them. Before we descend into this nightmare, do something for me. If you believe history isn't just dates and crowned kings, but the raw, disturbing, and brutally honest truth of human behavior, hit that like button. Subscribe, because we're not recycling safe facts. We're exposing what schools never taught. Let's step into the darkest chambers of castle punishment. Drop a comment telling me where you were watching from and whether you think you could have survived medieval justice. Scold's bridle. Silence and force through pain. At first glance, it looks almost harmless behind museum glass. A metal cage shaped to fit over a woman's head. But here's what the exhibits rarely show. Most Scold's bridles contained a tinch iron spike positioned directly against the tongue. In Walton-on-Thames, England, in 1567, Margaret Davy wore one for 3 days after her husband accused her of entertaining a merchant. Every attempt to speak, to plead, even to swallow, caused that spike to tear fresh wounds into her tongue. Imagine a metal cage padlocked around your head. You cannot eat. Your jaw cannot open wide enough. Drinking means choking on your own blood. You cannot defend yourself. The worst part? This was never done in private. Margaret was paraded through town, the bridle's small bells ringing with every step, announcing her disgrace to bakers, blacksmiths, and former friends. The Shrewsbury Chronicle records a woman in 1590 who wore a bridle for 6 days. When it was finally removed, she had bitten through part of her own tongue trying to shift away from the spike. Medieval society made its message unmistakable. A woman's voice was the first thing to destroy. Without a voice, innocence could not survive. A husband's failed harvest and need for someone to blame was enough, and this wasn't reserved for proven adultery. Suspicion was enough. Rumor was enough. The Scold's bridle was the medieval version of a public mob, except instead of online shame, you were left with permanent scars and starvation while surrounded by food you could not eat. Public shaving and stripping. Identity erased, and we escalate, because apparently iron torture masks were just the beginning. When Lady Eleanor de Clara was accused of infidelity in 1321 at Caerphilly Castle in Wales, her punishment began simply enough. Her head was shaved, then her eyebrows, then every strand of hair on her body, stripped and shaved in the great hall before nobles, servants, and guests. Castle washerwomen performed the act while Eleanor's husband sat nearby, eating pheasant. Her waist-length hair, a symbol of nobility and status, was gone. Her eyebrows erased, and then came the true cruelty. She was forced to walk the castle ramparts, bald and exposed, for 3 days straight during a bitter February cold. To be shaved publicly was to be marked as something less than human. Imagine having your humiliation permanently visible to everyone you'd ever meet. Hair in medieval society wasn't fashion, it was identity, rank, femininity. Monastic records list at least 47 noblewomen across England and France, between 1300 and 1450, subjected to this punishment. Faced the same witnesses every day while waiting months for their hair to grow back. And these women didn't leave afterward. They stayed, dined in the same halls. When she finally emerged, her hair had grown back white. She was 29. At Kenilworth Castle, Alice Pierce was shaved in 1377. Records say she refused to leave her chamber for 8 months. Picture a wooden chair attached to a long beam over a castle moat. It sounds almost playful, the cucking stool, drowning as spectacle. Now imagine being strapped into it, wrists bound, plunged again and again into freezing, filthy water while the town gathers to laugh. In 1445, at Leeds Castle, Joan Williamson endured 17 dunkings for alleged adultery. Each submersion lasted the length of 3 prayers, 30 to 45 seconds. Long enough for lungs to seize, long enough for panic to take over. Moats weren't clean. Punishment was designed to be survivable, but barely. If you drowned, God had judged you guilty. They were filled with sewage, rotting animals, and stagnant disease. If you lived, you were guilty anyway, now likely condemned to die slowly from infection. Chester City records note that nearly 60% of women subjected to repeated dunkings developed water fever, likely pneumonia or sepsis. This was considered mild. Often punishments were combined, shaved first, then dunked. No hair to protect the scalp from hypothermia. Mutilation, the permanent mark. Noblewomen sometimes begged for the cucking stool rather than what came next. When Agnes de Vesky was convicted of adultery at Unwit Castle in 1296, her punishment was precise. Her nose was cut off completely with a heated blade that cauterized as it sliced. She was a countess. At Carlisle Castle in 1317, Mary of Carlisle was found with a household knight, nose in both ears. Mary lived, but her life ended socially. No veil could hide her face. The castle barber surgeon performed the mutilation with forge-heated shears in the courtyard. Why the nose? Why the ears? Because medieval belief demanded visible sin. Your face was meant to reflect your soul. Mutilation was living proof of corruption. Social death without the mercy of execution. Durham Castle records list 14 women mutilated for adultery between 1290 and 1340. Most had no trial, no proof. A husband's word was enough. Immurement. Buried alive. Oh, take a breath. Immurement was reserved for the most severe cases. Being sealed alive within a wall or tower. In 1378, Countess Catherine d'Ademir was bricked into a chamber in her husband's castle in Brittany, alive. The space was 6 feet by 6 feet. She was given a Bible, a candle, and a narrow food slot. No window, no light once the candle burned out. She lived there for 7 years. Counts describe women losing their sanity, screaming at walls, speaking to hallucinations. No human contact beyond a silent hand sliding bread through stone. Some chose starvation rather than endure another day. In 1938, renovations at Castle Rushen uncovered skeletal remains in a sealed tower chamber. This was considered merciful, a woman still wearing decayed noble garments. Her fingers worn to bone from clawing stone. Scratch marks 3 inches deep. The shame procession. Psychological annihilation. Noble women weren't executed. Their souls needed saving. So instead they were given years to contemplate sin in a stone coffin. At every street corner, she confessed her sin aloud. In 1425, Lady Margaret Stafford was sentenced to walk barefoot from Stafford Castle to the town church every Sunday for 6 months, wearing only a thin shift in January. 24 walks, 24 public humiliations, children through mud, adults spat, friends turned away. Bishop Gray's records describe women collapsing mid-procession, revived only to be forced onward. If the candle flame went out, the walk restarted. Medieval society understood something we've forgotten. Social death can be worse than physical death. Starvation chambers were exactly what they sound like. Locked inside. No food. Starvation chambers. The slow vanishing. Starvation is not quick. At Chepstow Castle, a woman named Gwen was sealed in the forgetting room in 1405. She lasted 9 weeks. The body consumes itself. Muscle, hair, teeth. The mind fills with hallucinations of food. Castle records note that residents could hear screams for weeks. Then silence. Forced monastic imprisonment. Living erasure. Finally, the punishment deemed civilized. Lifetime confinement in a convent. Silence forever. No visitors. Lady Joan of Kent was sent to Godstow Abbey at 22. For 47 years, she lived in a 5-foot cell, praying 8 times daily, beginning at 2 in the morning. Speaking forbidden, identity erased. Average survival, 12 years. So think your relationship has trust issues? Records list over 30 women confined for adultery. Which punishment shocks you most? Could you survive even one day? Women once faced mutilation, starvation, and burial alive for suspicion alone. And trust, Methus was only the beginning. Next time, we descend into castle dungeon devices.